an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering The Hunger Games, Book 3, Mockingjay, Chapters 27 and Epilogue. It's the final episode of coverage, kiddos. In this episode, well, we find out about Katniss and her fate. But the thing that I think is the best is how Snow basically laughs himself to death. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man, they say, who murdered 3. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where a dead man called out for his love to flee? Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you?
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn.
Okay, so it takes a while for us to find out exactly what happened to Snow. But the chapter begins with a dead silence after Coin is killed. And then that motherfucker cracking up because she just did that. RoShawn, are you really out here messaging me? I am in the middle of my intro on our final chat. I'm going to just put you on Front Street right now.
You are supposed to have D&D on your phone. You're not. Why isn't your Do Not Disturb on? We're recording.
Is your D&D on?
Yes.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
It absolutely is. Because my mom will call right in the middle of this bitch.
And has. Right before we started, RoShawn wanted to send me a Howard Stern clip. And I was like, we have been talking. We got to get started. And she was like, God damn it. And then I'm doing my intro. And what do I get? But a text with the clip from Howard Stern.
Which
showed up in my messages.
Would not have seen that until we were done and you went and checked your phone. Oh my God. So, ma'am, don't be telling me what day of the week it is. That's something.
I feel like that was supposed to sound a lot better.
That's something like my grandma would say. Don't be trying to tell me what day of the week it is. My grandmother was very serious about the days of the week.
Oh,
she also she didn't curse, and she wasn't like, she didn't have like a potty mouth of any kind. Mm-hmm. So even when she was being like really like stern and sassy or flippant, it still was like had very little teeth to it.
Yes.
Yeah, don't be trying to tell her what day of the week it is. She knows what's going on.
It's like a white person saying, "Look here, Buster."
Yeah.
Okay.
Boy, I better straighten up. Buster, to get my shit together. but for real though, when we're done recording, I'm gonna need you to watch that shit.
Okay, I will. Okay. So Snow, his reaction to seeing Katniss kill Coin instead of him is to just bust out laughing and then basically like gurgle and like fall over because it's all blood.
Yeah.
And later we find out that he died, and they're not sure if it was like because he finally just died from his obvious lung problems or if it was due to the crowd like crushing him to death. They don't know.
I like to think
it's the lungs.
I like to think that he was like because he was tethered in a weird way, right? So I like to think that he sort of like was hanging over the balcony, just sort of swinging, and then it went at him like a fucking piñata. That's what I like to think happened. But
my God.
the text does not necessarily support that version, but I feel like there's a lot of room for interpretation. So that's what I'm going with.
Listen, that's the beauty of it, is you can create your own story. So yeah, immediately Katniss is like, what are the implications of me having done this? I'm going to be executed. It's going to be potentially torture, and my mom's going to be alone again. So you know what? And she tries to eat the nightlock berry that's in her pouch on her shoulder.
Yeah, she's
and
got
when
the
she
little one
bites down,
fucking
there's
Peeta.
Peeta's hand.
There's Peeta's hand. He's right there, man. How did he get there so fast?
Yeah.
He's fucking right there. And she is in a state, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
When she realizes that what he's done, and she watches the little pill, hit the ground and get crunched and destroyed, and she just completely loses her shit, because now she is not going to be able to just exit stage left. Now she's got to be here, and whatever they're going to do to her, they're going to do to her, and her choice, like, that's her choice, right? That's her one piece of agency has just been crushed underfoot.
Yeah.
And reality of her situation hits her, and she just fucking goes wild. Yeah, they have to like takes like a bunch of guards like to tackle her, and then they like have to lift her up over the crowd. It's like she's body surfing a crowd.
Yeah. I like that. Like, I don't, but
yeah, right. Yeah. And it's the whole thing, man. Like, she's screaming for Gale because she wants him to do the thing, but she also realizes that he's not there. And just like she didn't shoot him when he was asking, he's not going to be there to do her when she's asking. And this line, sorry excuses for hunters and friends, both of us. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like, it's a really interesting, because what she does is she has us pick up right at the end of the last chapter, but then we kind of like jump ahead in time. Mm-hmm. And it progresses slowly, because at first she's just like put into this room and we don't know what's going on, and nobody talks to her, tells her. So by the time somebody comes and speaks to her, there was a trial and everything, and she was not even involved.
So much time goes by, and they put her back in her original room that she was in before the first games. Only this time it's completely stripped bare. It's not prepared for anybody to be in there. There's no, the mattress doesn't even have linen on it. There's no towels. There's no clean clothes, because she, when she, I think she, like, one of the first things she does when she's in the room is she like tries to get out of her Mockingjay fit, and her body is wrecked. Like, all of her new fresh sort of skin that has been grafted on and it's trying to grow over the burns has just been rubbed raw. And she takes a shower, the gentlest shower that she can manage. I felt that in my spirit.
Yeah.
But and comes out and realizes there's not even anything like, not a towel, there's no clean clothes. But then she gets back in the room and realizes they took her suit and have left her like a paper hospital gown, practically.
Yeah.
A little bit of food, some medicine, and she just curls up on this mattress, this blood-stained mattress, because she bled all over it when she first got in the room. And that's it. And she's just staring around this like sterile room, thinking, how can I kill myself here?
And they have really cleaned out any potential options for that.
Mm-hmm. And she's also
it's so like, I totally get what they're thinking, obviously, of course, but also, like you mentioned, she has no agency at all, and it's so fucking awful how this keeps happening to her.
Yeah.
She keeps being like winding up in this position, and it just makes me so mad on her behalf.
The fact that she's in the same room from the very beginning is so quietly terrifying, because it really is like, I'm right back in this spot again. Like, literally in this spot again, but also in the larger sense. Like, here I fucking am again at their mercy. And she's pretty certain that they are watching her. Like, she's on surveillance, on some, kind of monitor or something. And she doesn't have any proof of this, but she's certain that it's true. And I tend to agree with her. It's probably true. Mm-hmm. They probably are keeping, watching everything that she does in there. And so what she realizes, the one thing that she can do, the one thing that she does have control over, that she thinks at least, is herself. So she says, well, I'm just going to not do anything. I give up. I'm going to lay on this bed and I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to take my meds. I'm just going to lay here and until I die. Yeah. And then she gets reminded that she's got a little bit of a dependency on the
This was
morphine.
Fascinating. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Considering the shit that she has given Haymitch for drinking. Understandably, she's given him shit. I'm not trying to say she was wrong, but now finding out that she's hooked on morphling and didn't notice it happening, hadn't seen that was where she was until she tries to stop. That's how addiction be, though. It sneaks up on you, and it's like you think it's fine until you're put in a position where you can't keep telling yourself you could stop. You're in a position now where you must, and all of a sudden that feels really scary. And that's when you start to be like, oh, this is a problem for me.
Yep. Yeah. And because she's so unaware of the dependency that she's developed from all the time that she was in 13 before, like, this, the execution and all that happened, that she stops taking them very cavalier. I don't fucking need this. I'm not taking your meds. I'm not eating your food. And then the withdrawal hits her, and it is a very physical withdrawal that, comes with tremors and pain and cold and just a host of unpleasant symptoms, to where she finds herself like on her hands and knees digging through the carpet for the pills that she had just, tossed aside. Yeah. And then she decides, oh, okay, you know what I'll do then? I'll just lean into this and become one of those, what does she call them? Yellow skin bags of bones with enormous eyes. Mm-hmm.
I'll just become a morphling addict now.
Mm-hmm. That'll be my suicide plan. I'll just go slow. And then we get what to her is a huge surprise, and to me was a huge surprise. She starts to sing. Yeah. And this is just so beautiful. I don't know why. I mean, I guess because, it's music and it's song, and it hits me in one of my sweet spots, but something about her revisiting this part of herself that's been shut down since her father died, and the way that she can't believe how she remembers them all. Like, she really thought this was gone from her life, and really it was just buried somewhere deep inside, but it wasn't gone at all. Something about that is so beautiful.
Yeah, this is something that I find really fascinating because, and I talked to you about this a little bit, like back in our going to the Renaissance fair, the Renaissance concert times. But
it was a fair though, y'all.
It was though. It was an affair to remember. But there is something about singing, and part of the reason why I talked about it with RoShawn is because there is a sort of disconnection that happened with me between myself and my body, which happens a lot of times when people go through major changes with their bodies. And for me, it was weight gain and distancing myself from actually feeling my body, because the weight gain was so uncomfortable and the implications of it upset me so much that I didn't want to feel what was happening to me. And it was like something about the Renaissance album forced me back into my body in a way that was actually joyful for the first time in literal years. And when I was talking about this with my mom, my mother suffers from Epstein-Barr. And so she's been doing some different programs that are meant to help with neurological issues because Epstein-Barr affects that. And she told me about singing and how it affects the vagus nerve. And I went and looked up some of this, and it's like really fascinating, but I used to sing constantly. And then I just hit a point in my life where I didn't anymore. I stopped doing so many things that were joyful expressions of joy because I wasn't feeling that way anymore. And I just went and looked this up. So I'm going to read this. Singing can help regulate the nervous system by stimulating the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve in the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve in the body, connecting the brain to various organs, including the larynx or voice box. Singing activates the vagus nerve, which sends signals of calm to the brain. This can help the body move out of the fight or flight response and help you feel relaxed, and also increases oxygen intake, which can improve energy and mood. Also activates networks of neurons on both sides of the brain. When we sing, our neurotransmitters connect in new ways, firing up the right temporal lobe. This releases endorphins that make us smarter, healthier, happier, and more creative. It can, and the fact that it it strengthens neural pathways, increases neuroplasticity. I find it really moving personally after what I have experienced the past year, that singing is part of how she begins to get through this. Yeah. It just makes a lot of sense to me, you know?
That is really, I didn't know that much about the vagus nerve bit. That's really, really interesting. I am not a singer, you know, I don't have a voice, but I do like for me, going to a concert and singing along with the band as loud as you can with hundreds of other people. There is no feeling like that in the world. It is like a euphoria. It is one of my absolute favorite things to do. And one of the few areas in which I experience a sort of complete release, you know, yes. All of sort of self-consciousness sort of falls away. It's funny because we're talking about it in a way of reconnecting with your body. And for me, it's almost like being an out of body experience where I am outside of myself, which is someone who is chronically in themselves. Being outside of myself is really, it's a treat. It's a special treat to be able to get outside of my head and outside of myself. And there's just that. There's just really nothing that feels like that for me. And that's really the only time, I'll sing along to music, if I'm bopping along at my desk, you know, but I don't really let loose, you know, because I'm in a house, you know, my husband's here. I know I sound terrible and, you know, I'm self-conscious and all that. But yeah, that's really, really interesting. Are you singing more? Yeah, that's
actually, I've been singing more, especially with the dropping of the next album as well, of course. And also I've been wanting to try because you know, this is something that I didn't realize at the time. I thought it was, you know, this is the thing with being a white person and who does appropriation and doesn't realize it and doesn't understand what that means. But when I was learning yoga as a teen and early 20s, a lot of what went along with that was short meditations before or after the session. And some of those meditations included a sort of a humming or mantra. And I felt like it was so pretentious And just like, you know, it felt very much like, come on, guys, like, what is this? I just didn't, you know, and because I didn't understand like the basis for it, and the people who teach you don't know the basis. Like, that's how appropriation works, is that they just take stuff, but there's none of the context. Right. And they just do it and think like, oh, see, I'm deep. And so I had a real, like, I didn't understand that's what I was responding to, but it was me getting that this had been appropriated and not having like a way to express why I felt this way. But now, after looking into the effects with the vagus nerve, that is part of why meditations include humming, because of that effect, that calming. So deep inhale and then and you just hold that for as long as you can. And it doesn't have to be singing full out. It's just the effect of the humming, not just the nerve action with that, but that assists with maintaining a sustained exhale that is sort of controlled. And really long inhales and exhales are also part of stimulating the vagus nerve.
Really?
So, yeah. So it's like a really a combination that makes a ton of sense. And I'm sure they didn't necessarily know when they started doing it. They were just like, this is calming and great, so we'll do this. And now we know like the science behind why it's calming and great. But so now I feel like that's something that I kind of want to start to incorporate a little bit more, because meditation by itself can be very hard for my brain. I can't stop thinking.
I have
But I feel like if I were focused on a hum, I could maybe focus more. You know what I mean? It might help. I don't know.
I always feel like a few times I tried it and they try to hit you with the ohm, and I'm just like, oh, this is like so pretentious, and I don't know if I should be saying this. I don't even like it. You know, yeah. And then and I'm thinking about all of that stuff instead of like the actual meditating I'm supposed to be doing.
Precisely. This is why we're friends, because we both have the same sort of, oh God, cringe reaction. But you don't even have to say om. You could just you know, make any sound. There are people who kind of come up with their own mantras. I've never tried to do that, but as far as I'm concerned, it's like the same thing as doing spell casting. You know, like what's the difference? So,
I mean, honestly,
yeah,
but that's for a
but we won't talk
day.
about that right now. So she, like you said, showers, goes out on the mattress, does all of this like sort of bodily rebellion. And as this is all happening, there's this phrase that is underlined that deserves it. I won't do it if they want to remake me and train and use me. If I can't kill myself in this room, I'll take the first opportunity outside of it to finish the job. They can fatten me up. They can give me a full body polish, dress me up, and make me beautiful again. They can design dream weapons that come to life in my hands, but they will never again brainwash me into the necessity of using them. I no longer feel any allegiance to these monsters called human beings, despite being one myself. I think that PETA was onto something about us destroying one another and letting some decent species take over, because something is significantly wrong with a creature that sacrifices its children's lives to settle its differences. You can spin it any way you like. Snow thought the Hunger Games were an efficient means of control. Coin thought the parachutes would expedite the war. But in the end, who does it benefit? No one. The truth is, it benefits no one to live in a world where these things happen. And that line, it benefits no one to live in a world where these things happen. Really, I felt like I'd been sort of like flicked between the eyes with that. Yeah.
I mean, and this is not necessarily to correct, but I just think it's really like the sentence, she doesn't say despite being one myself. She says despise being one myself. I no longer feel any allegiance to
despise
these
being on myself.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is like fucking like yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only am I over all of this bullshit of being humans, but I'm over being a part of it myself. Like, I don't even like me being a part of this, you know? I don't think that I'm somehow different or special or above reproach. I am as monstrous as the rest of them.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do it anymore. They can't make me do it anymore. You're right. That last sentence, man, that's the thing. You know, it's funny. It's not funny. I got to come up with a different way to express that thought because it's not funny at all. But like, it's just an unfortunate expression that we all use. You know what? I think it's funny how, but that shit don't be funny at all.
Maybe it's arresting. It's interesting.
It's upsetting.
It's compelling.
She, God damn it. What the fuck was what was my point going to be?
Living in a world where these things happen.
Oh, yes. Thank you. It has become a very common refrain in the U.S. when we're talking about these big issues that we can't seem to get around, right? While we can't get around the violence and the apathy and the just the horrific way we treat each other, the circumstances, the oppression we're living, all of that stuff, right? People will often say, well, we had X number of elementary age children slaughtered at their school and we didn't do anything about it. You know, as a benchmark for how lost we are.
Right.
You know, we use that as an example of how ineffectual we are. Like, we let that happen and we haven't made any substantial changes for the better since it happened. Things have only gotten worse. And that's it. Like, no one benefits to live in a world where that kind of thing happens and we don't do something to fix it. Like, and you can just add, like, the list of things you could add to that event is just like so long. But the world just keeps right on spinning and we just like, who does it benefit? The only thing I will take issue with is she says, who does it benefit? No one. It does benefit someone. It benefits someone's.
I think it's more like it benefits like in a very narrow way. But in any big picture way, it doesn't benefit them either.
Right.
But they're too like completely wrapped up to really get that or see it or care.
Yes, I like that. I'll take that. Yeah. Because when she's talking about earlier. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, like, the thing that I really like is just basically you are creating a place where something like people went through something like this, but every time, and this is something that later Plutarch basically says as well, is we act like this time is the last time. We won't do it again. This is the last one. We finally got it right. And now we're fine and good and everybody's happy together. And it's like, we never learn. It's such a shockingly short amount of time between the conflicts, these major ones that involve any particular group of people where we act like this is all brand fucking new. And like, we haven't done this exact same shit recently. There are people alive who still remember going through it and we're acting like it's distant history and it's wild. Like, just the bizarre denial in our country especially is such a phenomenon, how we are able to ignore, you know?
It has to be something about the way that we're hardwired as human beings, that it has to be, I don't know if this is true. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, y'all. I'm just doing a podcast about a book, but it's almost like if humans were not able to have such short-term memories, we would not propagate as a species. It's like we're hardwired to forget so that we can keep moving. Like, we think we're moving forward, but we're really just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And if we ever really truly remembered what we had just done, we would be forced to do things in an entirely different way going forward. And I don't know if humans are capable of that, you know? I mean, which is why on a whole other topic, the idea of like, I think the idea of original sin is so attractive. I don't want to get into a whole religious thing, but the idea that we are like so innately flawed and corrupt at our core, and so then we come up with a reason for that, and then we give ourselves like a exit out, like a secret door that, you know, you can
escape hatch.
An escape hatch. Thank you. Because the alternative is to be like, no, we're just shitty because we are shitty because we do shitty things and we keep making the shitty choices. And we're just shitty because we choose it every day in big ways and little ways. And it's a lot easier to, no, we're just, it's
we're
not our
just doing
fault.
The one final war, the war to end all wars.
Yeah, right. Every time. And then, so she's in this room by herself for, I'm going to assume, a nice bit of time, because at some point it's snowing outside. And then someone comes in to see her.
Yeah. This whole thing. Come on, your trial's over. Come on, we're going home. I've never seen Plutarch in such a good mood. He's positively glowing. You must have a million questions. When I don't respond, he answers them anyway. After I shot Coin, there was pandemonium. When the ruckus died down, they discovered Snow's body still tethered to the post. Opinions differ on whether he choked to death while laughing or was crushed by the crowd. No one really cares. An emergency election was thrown together, and Paylor was voted in as president. Plutarch was appointed Secretary of Communications, which means he sets the programming for the airwaves. The first big televised event was my trial, in which he was also a star witness, in my defense, of course. Although most of the credit for my exoneration must be given to Dr. Aurelius, who apparently earned his naps by presenting me as a hopeless, shell-shocked lunatic. One condition for my release is that I'll continue under his care, although it will have to be by phone since he'd never live in a forsaken place like 12, and I'm confined there until further notice. The truth is, no one quite knows what to do with me now the war's over, although if another one should spring up, Plutarch's sure they could find a role for me. Then Plutarch has a good laugh. It never seems to bother him when no one else appreciates his jokes. Are you preparing for another war, Plutarch? I ask. Oh, not now. Now we're in that sweet period where everyone agrees that our recent horrors should never be repeated, he says. But collective thinking is usually short-lived. We're fickle, stupid beings with poor memories and a great gift for self-destruction. Maybe, though, this is the one. Maybe that's it. Again, he can't help but also do the thing that he's kind of mocking,
Yep. Maybe we're witnessing the evolution of the human race. Think about that, he says. I was a little disappointed with this bit, only because it left out some information that I was really interested in getting. When they talk about the trial, I was wondering if anything about Coin was going to come out. Right? Like whether that she was behind dropping the parachutes, but I get, and that she was going to have another Hunger Games. But best I can tell, there's no mention of any of that. And I guess maybe if I were to take a step back and think, well, if they mention that, that would probably cause much more strife. But it sounds like their defense was just that Katniss is out of her mind, and they just left it at that. And I'm wondering if the populace were to find out that's what Coin had planned, if that would cause further division when they're trying to, be about unifying everybody. Like maybe people who fought for the rebels would suddenly regret having followed Coin and, decide that they're not part of the rebels anymore and they want to have their own faction, and maybe
I think that's a good point. Yeah, because I hadn't really considered the implications of like telling everybody, oh yeah, the new person you were about to like be ruled by was going to do the same shit. Like that would probably undermine a lot of things. So it would make sense to just be, we won't.
But it just bums me out that Katniss is not going to be. I want her to get credit for what she did. And I guess there's just not a real way to make that happen.
Yeah, probably not. Nobody's going to know what a fucking service she did, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's just the way that shit goes sometimes, right? My garage band is like, bitch, no, we're done for the night.
All right. Well, Zencaster's going, so I think we're all right.
But yeah, I want I don't know, what she did was so incredibly brave and bold and also, yes, a little crazy, maybe, maybe, but still the fact that she's going to go down in history as, this person who was at this height of glory as the Mockingjay and then just sort of devolved into, what do they call her? A shell-shocked lunatic. It just feels like such a disservice to everything that she did. It feels unfair. I know it's not important.
It feels really true to the female experience.
Listen. Oh, she's just hysterical.
Yep. And she did something that's unconscionable. This person was great. Everybody knew it. You knew it. I knew it. How could they? Unthinkable. And then you talk to them and they were like, oh yeah, they were going to, use children as roulette chips again or whatever roulette things there are. I don't know how that works.
In 50 years, there's going to be a Freedom of Information Act file, and somebody's going to find out all the shit that Coin was really doing, like when we find out what the CIA was doing in the 60s.
It's going to be this whole resuscitation of Katniss's reputation, and she's going to be getting calls for interviews, and she's going to be like, I am so over talking about this ever again. Thank you, but pass. Because, guys, the way that women's voices are just discounted, and the fact that she was used as a figurehead the way that she was would just make it weirdly less believable for her to say anything, because people at that point, I think, would be used to her filling a particular role, and now she's done something so wildly outside that. I feel like it would just undermine her credibility with people. I don't think she would be believed the way I wish she would be due to her position. I think it would work against her, which isn't fair, but that's so often how this shit works.
Yep. And couple that with the fact that she's not just a woman, but she's a very young woman as well.
Yes. It's just women's our opinions and our feelings and thoughts about things are just so rarely taken seriously at all. And it's so infuriating as you get older and look back and see how often you were dismissed. And in the moment, you may not have even realized that was quite what was happening, or you thought it was a sort of one-off kind of situation. And then after years pass and you begin to see that pattern, you're like, oh my God, and yeah, it's just not, it's so unfair. And her not getting the credit that she's due for saving everybody and being ready to put herself on the line to make sure that she does. Of course, she's not going to be, that's not going to be seen. Ugh.
And these people, I imagine I don't want to hold the Haymitches and the Plutarchs and the Beatties and the Gales, I don't want, they only have but so much power. Plutarch has the most, obviously, out of the people I just named, but they all knew the truth about Coin, and Katniss is the only one that took any action. Everybody else was just going to go along with it. It looked like, at least, right? Mm-hmm. And now they have all, moved on with their lives and their new positions, even Gail. And she is the one left holding the bag.
Yeah. That is just, again, fucking experience. You know what? I'm going to talk to you about that after the show. Actually, I won't do that on here, but there's a whole other thing that's like kind of connected, but it's too personal, which is rare for me to say. But, so this is when she starts to notice, like, hold on, Hamish is coming with me to 12, but he shouldn't be sent to 12 because he hasn't done anything wrong. And being sent to this like godforsaken place is a punishment. So what's going on? And she realizes, like, oh, you have to like be you're still my mentor, basically. They're making you check up on me. And he tells her that her mother's, she guesses my mother's not coming back. No, she's helping to start up a hospital in District 4. She wants you to call as soon as we get in. You know why she can't come back. And do you want to know who else won't be there? No, I say. I want to be surprised. I have to say, the fact that her mother is just so not there for Katniss is really devastating. Yeah. She gets another opportunity here. And I know that Katniss probably would not have accepted it because she's just got the baggage she's got. But she doesn't even try. And I can't forgive her for that.
And Katniss immediately is like, Hamish really is the one that says it, and Katniss agrees. They just give her a pass. It'd be too hard for her to come back. Too hard for her to come back. So she can't. And I get it. Katniss's mother has been presented as this very fragile being from the jump. Someone who has suffered loss and never really recovered from the loss of her husband, and then now she's lost both her daughters, really, in reality, but lost Prim in a very irreparable way, and she could have chosen to face this loss with her surviving daughter. They could have faced this loss together, and she opts not to do that and abandons her daughter. She abandons her, and I know it sucks, and that it would be very hard for Katniss's mom, whose name I think she had a name. Does she have a name?
I don't think she's ever been named. I believe we talked about this in the Discord.
I think
so. She doesn't have a name.
I have a tremendous amount of sympathy for her losses and the pain that she would face, but she has a daughter, and you have a responsibility to your daughter. She's maybe 17 now, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
You still have a kid. You have a kid, and she just bounces on her, and that is. Like, there's not much said about it after that. There's a little bit later on when she finally has a breakdown about her sister, and then she calls her mom and they have a good cry together. But that's really all you get. There's not really a lot of blame placed on the mother. And no. I feel like maybe we're being a little too, and I will rarely say this, guys, but a little too kind. I think we're being a little too kind here.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like really what it is that Katniss has just accepted everybody as shit in her life. You know what I mean? Like, which is just a bleak place to be, but that's where she's at. She's at like the bleakest possible place. So
yeah. And I think when you talked a little bit earlier about the baggage that Katniss has, even if her mother had come back with her, it still would have been like kind of strained. But her mother abandoned Katniss at such an important time once before, and even though their relationship was like, my God,
Jesus
sorry, I don't know if
Christ.
you guys can hear that. I'm telling you, people they want their fries and they want them now. Damn it.
Same. Forget I said anything. I have total sympathy.
But sometimes you don't you maybe want to forgive the person for letting you down in such a profound way, but you also do a thing where you guard yourself from ever letting them disappoint you in that way a second time.
Right.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the Katniss doesn't really dwell on it, because like that part of her that her mom could touch and hurt her in that way, that's like kind of off limits to her mom. Like she's not going to get to do that twice. You know what I mean? And that's really
pretty much how I
sad.
interpreted it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh God. There's a meme that I saw recently that was, set up like a script, and it was therapist. So what do we say when life disappoints us? Called it. No. I was just like, damn.
Oh my God. Fucking called out. Jesus Christ. Fuck's sake. But yeah, the line where she says, Mom, Mom's not coming back. The place is too painful to bear, but apparently not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that also really hit me, because like no one took that into consideration, how hard it would be to send Katniss back here.
Yep. And I mean, granted, she's basically a prisoner, so considering it for her, oh well, you shot the president.
Yeah. That's
I'm sure that's the way they look at it. But I can't help but be like, after fucking everything she did, you guys, just God, It
could have sent her anywhere.
Okay. Yeah. So she goes inside or let's see. Someone's built a fire in my kitchen. I sit in the rocker before it, clutching my mother's letter. Well, see you tomorrow, says Hamish. As the clinking of his bag of liquor bottles fade away, I whisper, I doubt it. I'm unable to move from the chair. The rest of the house looms cold and empty and dark. I pull an old shawl over my body and watch the flames. I guess I sleep, because the next thing I know, it's morning, and Greasy Say is banging around at the stove. She makes me eggs and toasts and sits there till I've eaten it all. We don't talk much. Her little granddaughter, the one who lives in her own world, takes a bright blue ball of yarn from my mother's knitting basket. So this is setting up sort of a pattern that goes on for a sort of indeterminate amount of time. I don't know if it's like a couple of weeks exactly or what. But all I could think with this was that Katniss is in this profound state of grief and depression, and how lucky she is that she has somebody to cook for her. Because if you are, have gone through this sort of thing, just how incredibly draining it is to do basic shit to take care of yourself.
Well, she's not doing anything to take care of herself except eating. Like
exactly.
If Greasy Sade's not there, she's just sitting in that chair until she starves. She's barely getting up to scrounge around for food.
I definitely think that's how that would go for sure.
Like it says, some time has passed because Greasy Say says that, it feels like spring in the air today. You should get outside. And we find out that not only has Katniss not left the house, she hasn't even left the kitchen except to use the bathroom that's right there. She's still in the very same clothes that she left the Capitol in. She has not washed, changed clothes. We find out later she hasn't washed her hair or anything. Yeah, she's in a bad fucking way. Yeah. And just left alone and isolated. And she says after a little while, Greasy says, you should go outside to go hunting. And she says something like, I don't have a bow. And she's like, go check down the hall. And she finally gets up and leaves and goes and visits a different room in the house that she hasn't even been in. And finds a bunch of all of her shit, like her parents' wedding book and her plant book and her father's jacket. I think the locket from PETA is there. A couple other things. And her bow and her arrows. And all she does is put on her dad's jacket and then just leaves the room. She doesn't even go through anything else.
Yeah, and this is when she has a nightmare.
Oh, this is awful. This is awful. This gave me such anxiety reading this nightmare.
I'm lying at the bottom of a deep grave, and every dead person I know by name comes and throws a shovelful of ashes on me. It's quite a long dream, considering the list of people, and the deeper I'm buried, the harder it is to breathe. I try to call out, begging them to stop, but the ashes fill my mouth and nose, and I can't make any sound. Still, the shovel scrapes on and on and on. And she wakes up and she hears the shovel and is kind of flipping out. And when she runs to the window, it's PETA. And he has brought primrose bushes to plant in the yard.
My God, when she first sees that it says Rose and she's about to fucking tear his head off. And then she realizes it says Primrose. I'd
like to think that he like saw her face and doesn't know why she reacted so violently for a second. Mm-hmm. She's like, Jesus, I thought she'd be happy. What just happened? But then she reverses and, it's just like, the only thing she can do is nod. She can't even say anything. And she runs upstairs and it says, my foot catches on the last step and I crash into the floor. I force myself to rise and enter my room. The smell's very faint, but still laces the air. It's there. The white rose among the dried flowers in the vase, shriveled and fragile, but holding on to that unnatural perfection cultivated in Snow's greenhouse. I grab the vase, stumble down to the kitchen, and throw its contents into the embers. As the flowers flare up, a burst of blue flame envelops the rose and devours it. Fire beats roses again. I smash the vase on the floor for good measure. So
I can't believe that thing was in the house the whole time she's been there. It was like
makes sense that she didn't even want to go and deal with it. Stay in one room,
Yeah.
I strip and flakes of skin the size of playing cards cling to the garments. I was just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I couldn't even picture that. Like I was trying to visualize it, and I was like, I got nothing.
I scrub the roses from my hair, my body, my mouth. Bright pink and tingling, I find something clean to wear. It takes half an hour to comb out my hair. So she manages to kind of get herself together enough to ask where Gale is, finds out that he's in District 2.
Got some fancy
job. I see him now and again on television.
Mm-hmm.
And she's relieved. She's like thinking that maybe she'll feel something else and can't really muster anything else.
Yeah. I was really curious about this. The relief is, I was just like, and it's probably just like a whole host of different reasons why she's feeling relief, right? Like probably relief that he's well, relief that he's gotten on with his life and doesn't seem to be stuck in the, I'm still in love with you and I need to be with you and why can't we be together? So like that part is over. And this is going to sound weird, but just kind of like free of him. I don't mean that in like a nasty way though, but like just sort of free of the triangle that they were in with her and PETA and Gale, free of like the debt that she kind of felt that she owed him, that I think was washed off when the fucking parachutes that he helped, build.
Agree.
Her sister, that like wiped that debt right clean, I think. But just like the whole matter of it is being like done, like that's done now. I don't have to be concerned about how he feels about the things that I'm doing or the choices that I made and how does it all affect, so much of what she was doing. How is it going to affect Gale? How's Gale going to feel when he sees me doing this or hears me saying that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just done. And that's kind of what I took that to mean.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and it's a relief to me as a reader, honestly. Like, after everything, I had just gotten so impatient with him. I didn't want to deal with him again, you know?
I do know.
So she goes out intending to hunt, and she comes across the people digging through all of the like ruins of the building where the mayor had lived.
Yeah.
And she asks if they found anybody in there. Tom says, whole family. And the two people who worked for them. Madge, quiet and kind and brave. The girl who gave me the pin that gave me a name. I swallow hard. Wonder if she'll be joining the cast of my nightmares tonight. I thought maybe since he was the mayor. I don't think being the mayor of 12 put the odds in his favor, says Tom. And there's just something about like them not having been high enough on the chain to get away from this all.
Right.
That I really appreciate, you know, that
yeah.
within everything they were basically nobility, but like in comparison, nah.
Yeah. And I also wonder if there was an extra hint of, you know, because she was from 12 and this was sort of, you know, a strike, not just against the people of 12, but also like because it was where Katniss was from. So like maybe if like not that Tom is blaming Katniss, but I was curious if that was part of what he was trying to say, being like, well, you know,
after he was the target you put on our backs.
Yeah, kind of like, you know, he was mayor of the place you're from, so that wasn't going to fucking help him out.
Yeah,
but I don't know if Tom meant it that way. It didn't seem like Tom was being shady. He just says it very matter of factly. So I don't know. I think it's a combination maybe of, because we've been told multiple times that 12 is just like not a district of consequence. You know, they're very low on the totem pole. So I think your point about them just not being important enough also has a lot to do with it.
So she goes out into the woods, and like I said, she had fully thought she was going to hunt, but she's like really not up for this in a way that she is out of
shape.
This is the thing. When you like let yourself get out of shape, it happens so fucking fast. And especially if you're doing this thing, which is similar to what I described, disconnecting from my body. Once you decide you're going to try and reconnect, it's a shock. You don't know what you had until you decide to neglect it and lose it, which is one of the tritest of lessons, because it is one of the truest. Because that's just how that shit works.
Sometimes people be overestimating their bounce back.
Oh my God.
Right?
Like, you know, I've been doing this running thing. This shit, you guys. So I have been really trying to like reclaim some of my own health, because I'm like using a CPAP machine. I've got like weird nerve issues on some of my legs because of weight gain. This has gotten to a point where like you can be fat and healthy, but I am not. I am fat and unhealthy. I need to at least start taking better care of myself with simply like the choices I'm making in terms of eating and how much I'm moving during the day. And I started this running program, very slow progression that is 3 months long. And usually how it works with this sort of thing, a good rule of thumb is if you're out of shape and like you start a new thing, the first like 2 days back, you feel surprisingly good. You're like, oh, this is actually easier than I expected. And then the third or fourth time, it really begins to hit you. Oh God, this is hard. This is really hard. And then it stays hard for like 3 weeks in a row, to the point where you kind of start to be like, why am I doing this? It's not working. I'm not getting any better at this. And then you start to break through onto the other side. I thought I had broken through to the other side because I've been doing it about a month and a half. But I unfortunately, instead of listening to the clear signals I was getting from my body that it was going at max already, I tried to follow the program to the letter by increasing my running time and lowering my walking time because it's an interval thing. And I almost made it so that I quit because I pushed myself too hard and hurt, and it was miserable. And I pulled some cards about this, RoShawn. It was so funny. I was like, I need some guidance about my health and what to do because this week was the first time I've missed a day of running because I was so in the dumps. And the first card I pulled was, I think it was the Knight of Wands. I can't remember, but it was basically a card that's all about the slog, the mundane, boring, tedious shit that you have to do to get anywhere. And it sucks, and we know it sucks, and it's no fun, but it will get you there. You just gotta. You have to. I'm so sorry, but you gotta. And then the next card was a card about you may need to stick less firmly to a routine, which feels like it's in direct contrast, but really I took it as like, girl, yeah, you missed a day. I hear you're over here thinking about just quitting because you missed a day. No. Like, you've got to have some fucking flexibility. You missed a day. Okay, now go. Do a day. Go ahead and do it. And it was so funny because that's the way that tarot works for me every time. It never tells me shit that's like new that I don't know really. It's always shit I know, but it just puts them together in such a way that I feel like I've just been like bonked over the head with a soft mallet. It's just somebody going, you fucking dodo. Why are you even asking? You know the answer to this already, you know? Just basically like, yeah, it is hard and you're miserable. You don't have to follow the program exactly as written if it's bad for you. You don't need to stick to that completely.
You're allowed to modify it.
Fucking doing it.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
You know?
Don't use the rigidness as an excuse to not do it at all. Like
RoShawn. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's
what?
Talk about bonked on the head with a soft mallet. That's going to be my new shorthand for whenever something's like very obvious to literally everybody else except for me. Using the rigidity as an excuse not to do it. Oh my God. Oh, fuck. I feel like I've been shot.
All right. Well, that therapist meme. Now we're even.
I sent RoShawn a meme asking her if she wanted to be read for filth. And the meme was, you self-sabotage because if you can predict what's going to happen, it makes you feel in control of your life.
Ouch! Yep. That was not a soft mallet.
That was one of those Acme Looney Tunes mallets where you turn into a little pancake, and when the mallet comes up, you're like squashed like a soda can. All those like vertical ridges.
I'm just flattened into the earth in a giant hole with a mallet in the ground.
Just a pair of eyes blinking slowly. Yep.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Anyway, enough with these books telling us about ourselves. So she winds up needing to like get a ride home and be carried into the house. And she falls asleep and at one point gets woken up by this hissing sound.
My God, you guys, I screamed. This made me so ridiculously happy. It was like, it was an unreasonable reaction is what I had. There's no reason for it, but I had it anyway. I was completely overjoyed by this little turn of events. And, it's just so beautifully written, and it's so fucking how it works with pets, right? With animals, and the way that this all goes, the way that this opens her up to the pain that she has been refusing to face. I loved every bit of this. It was so good. So good.
Yeah, it's Buttercup. And he's like injured and
he's
clearly been attacked, but he has made it. He got all the way home from 13. And she says it was a waste of a trip. She's not here. Buttercup hisses again. She's not here. You can hiss all you like. You won't find Prim. At her name, he perks up. Get out. Go away. There's nothing left for you here. I start to shake, furious with him. She's not coming back. She's never ever coming back here again. I grab another pillow and get to my feet to improve my aim. Out of nowhere, the tears begin to pour down my cheeks. She's dead. I clutch my middle to dull the pain, sink down on my heels, rocking the pillow, crying. She's dead, you stupid cat. She's dead. A new sound, part crying, part singing, comes out of my body, giving voice to my despair. Buttercup begins to wail as well. No matter what I do, he won't go. He circles me just out of reach as wave after wave of sobs racks my body until eventually I fall unconscious. But he must understand, he must know that the unthinkable has happened, and to survive will require previously unthinkable acts. Because hours later, when I come to my bed, he's there in the moonlight, crouched beside me, yellow eyes alert, guarding me from the night.
Yeah. This was tough to read, but it's funny. Damn it. It's not funny, but I was concerned with the short amount of time we had left and how we were going to wrap up, right? Mm-hmm. And even though this is moving very quickly, I feel so far that it was very satisfying. Like, we get to 12 and we watch her be isolated and in this depressive, grief-stricken state. Not coming to terms, but this finally facing the pain that she has, the loss of her sister, that is the catalyst is just this cat showing back up. I was worried
to get it.
I was worried that there were going to be like shortcuts and that I was going to feel very cheated. But I don't, it works really, it worked really well for me. And I was surprised because I thought that like these two, the last chapter and the epilogue, it's very short. There's not going to be enough time. I'm going to feel like it's rushed. I'm going to feel like it's not earned. And, I just didn't feel that at all.
Good. I agree.
Pleasantly surprised.
I've heard some criticism akin to what you're saying about it being rushed, and I can understand why people feel that way, but I personally don't. So I'm glad that you don't either.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. There's like, if it had been more fleshed out and we spent more time going through this, I would have probably enjoyed that as well. But I don't feel cheated. I don't feel cheated at all. I was really concerned, but no, it just worked really well for me. And then, of course, we're talking about a cat. That's always going to go over well with me.
Yeah. Yeah. So gradually we have the progression of her just going through the motions. She mentions like following Dr. Aurelius's advice because PETA had delivered a message that he can only pretend that you're doing your meetings with him for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she had mentioned that her phone rings all the time and she never answers it. And she's got a stack of mail that she never answers like that. That's mentioned earlier as well.
Yeah.
So I love this. The next morning, she cleans Buttercup up because he was in bad shape when he showed up, and he lets her take the thorn from his paw, and they cry again. Only this time they comfort each other, and this gives her strength to open the letter from her mother. And then she actually calls her mom, and they cry. And then PETA brings over some bread. And Greasy Say makes her breakfast, and she gives all her bacon to Buttercup, which is like, that's it. That's it now. They're ride or die now. There's bacon being shared.
Yeah, considering how much of a point she made at the beginning of the book that she begrudged giving animals any food.
And it just says slowly she comes back to life, and she tries to follow the doctor's advice about just going through the motions of the day. And then one day they have meaning again. And she tells the doctor about this idea she has for a book. And the next day, or the next time there's a train, she gets a large delivery of parchment sheets. And her and PETA put a book together, a place where they can record the things you cannot trust to memory. And it's... each page is a person's picture, a photo if they have it, or a sketch or a painting by PETA. And then she writes in her most careful handwriting all the details that it would be a crime to forget. I love that so much. All the details that it would be a crime to forget. And then there's just like a little list of the things that they included in the book. The color of Phoenix eyes. I really love that. What Senna could do with the length of silk. Boggs reprogramming the hollow, Rue poised on her toes. Just lovely. And then Haymitch joins them. Yeah. Contributing 23 years of tributes he was forced to mentor. Which is really something because that's just not something that Haymitch has ever really wanted to talk about. He's never really wanted to revisit that. So even though we don't get great detail about it, there's something so healing. It's like one paragraph, but it's so much healing in this paragraph. It's just remarkable.
The framing it as 23 years of, that for me is the wording of that really throws it in my face a little bit, how much he has gone through before all of this, the reminder of how long, decade after decade at this point.
Yep.
No wonder the man drinks like he drinks. I mean, come on.
Like, what is that? 2 kids for 23 years? It's 46 people, 46 kids you watch die, get murdered.
Yeah. I guess maybe 44 if she's including the 2 of them, her and PETA. But nevertheless, it's quite high enough a number.
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah. And I like to think that this is like healing for him as well.
That's
and then
exactly right.
This strange bits of happiness, like the photo of Finnick and Annie's newborn son.
Yeah.
So he knocked Annie up before he died.
Yeah.
And there's something just so incredibly bittersweet about that. I mean, just fucking stab me in the heart. Why don't you?
Yeah. And I wonder, like, this is complete fan fiction, but I like to think, and this is not something I normally would consider, but for the tone of the book, and we're talking about healing and hopefully people getting happier endings, I like to think that Annie is somewhere surrounded by people who care tremendously for her, and that having Finnick's child, even though she lost Finnick, is a healing for her as well. you know, and that maybe she is having a life somewhere that has joy in it. And maybe even her I don't know if her mental state could be improved by having a child or not, but maybe, you know.
Yeah.
It just makes me like, it's just a nice thing to think about. I don't know if it's for real, but you know, it's nice to think about.
PETA bakes. I hunt. Haymitch drinks until the liquor runs out, and then raises geese until the next train arrives. Fortunately, the geese can take pretty good care of themselves.
Of course he would be trying to raise fucking geese.
The most vicious animal on planet Earth.
Really honest to God, right? Jesus Christ. And then we find out that people start coming back to 12. A few hundred people return because this is their home. And the mine is closed now, and they're going to build factories that make medicine. And I really like that too. I like that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the fuel situation is in Panama now, and like, you know, whether or not
whatever,
you know what I mean, with the coal and all that shit. I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty tech savvy place, you know, especially when you get to the capital and you see how things are there. So the fact that they're still mining coal, like, did anybody really need that coal, or is it just something for people to do?
This came up a lot with people, just being like, why are we mining coal in this universe? It doesn't seem like that would be a thing, but okay.
But something about making a factory that makes medicine now, as opposed to these horrendous death traps that people were forced to work in for what probably wasn't even a good fucking reason. And then this
product that literally heals.
And then PETA and I grow back together. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. There are still moments when he clutches the back of a chair and hangs on until the flashbacks are over. I wake screaming from nightmares of mutts and lost children, but his arms are there to comfort me, and eventually his lips. On the night I feel that thing again, the hunger that overtook me on the beach. I know this would have happened anyway. That what I need to survive is not Gale's fire kindled with rage and hatred. I have plenty of fire myself. What I need is the dandelion in the spring. The bright yellow that means rebirth instead of destruction. The promise that life can go on, no matter how bad our loss is, that it can be good again. And only PETA can give me that. So after, when he whispers, "You love me, real or not real," I tell him, real. And I really do love that. Especially that this would have happened anyway, instead of making it as like, this was circumstantial. Prim's death drove us apart, and who knows what would have happened. Nope. Instead, it's just like, oh yeah, no, this was it. Actually,
this was always it. I just, you know, I had a lot of other shit going on. I didn't really know. I didn't recognize it. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And you know, in hindsight, when you think about everything she's been through, like the circumstances she was in, it makes sense that she couldn't really be in touch with what she needed and what she really wanted, because she wasn't in control of her own life. And when you're not in control of your life, it's difficult to be in control of your emotions and know what you really want versus what other people are telling you should want. You know, like, you don't know who to trust. You don't know what's real and what's not real, you know? And she's finally at a place where she can tell the difference now between what's real and what's not real. And I love that came into the book as something for PETA, as a mechanism for PETA to determine what's real and what's not real. But she was also hijacked in a way, you know?
Yeah.
And wasn't always able to tell what's real and what's not real. And people were lying to her face and using her, and she just wasn't, we talk about her agency and the lack of it, and now that she's kind of centered and can make her own choices based on what's really happening in front of her. Yeah, it's PETA. Yeah, of course it is.
All right, so now we go into the epilogue. They play in the meadow. The dancing girl with the dark hair and blue eyes, the boy with blonde curls and gray eyes, struggling to keep up with her on his chubby toddler legs. It took 5, 10, 15 years for me to agree, but PETA wanted them so badly. When I first felt her stirring inside me, I was consumed with a terror that felt as old as life itself. Only the joy of holding her in my arms could tame it. Carrying him was a little easier, but not much. And this epilogue is mostly her thinking about how they don't know, like, the history of where they stand. They're taught a little in school, and they know the daughter, being older, knows that her parents were involved. And Katniss knows someday she'll have to tell her about it, but doesn't know how. And the phrasing that she uses there is, how can I tell them about that world without frightening them to death? And I couldn't help but find that sort of funny, because children don't feel that kind of fear. You can tell them anything about a hypothetical situation, and 9 times out of 10, they will be fascinated and not afraid, because they don't have the frame of reference for the fear that adults have. So I was just sort of like, Katniss, I don't think you need to worry about that, because they are not going to get it. And that's what's going to frustrate you, is that they aren't afraid. They won't get it. It'll be good that they don't, but it will be hard for you that they don't. Yeah.
When you, like, trying to explain to someone about history, even when it's recent, we were talking about this earlier in this very episode, we have such a disconnect. And one of the reasons is because it's very difficult to relay the experience of one generation to the next generation in a way that they actually get it in a lived experience way, because they haven't lived it or experienced it themselves. And that's one of the things that makes us susceptible to making the same kind of mistakes over and over again, because there's just not a real way to transfer that lived experience to someone who didn't go through it themselves. And then there's this little song that she has here that she talks about it being her children's experience. They take it for granted that there's safety, that there's softness, that the sun will rise, that it's, warm, and that you're being guarded from every harm. And for her kids, that's just every day. That's just how they live. I like too that the arenas have all been destroyed and memorials are built, and there's no more Hunger Games, but they're like loosely taught at school, which is also a thing that we do, right? We destroy the evidence of the atrocity, and we build memorials, and then we designate a chapter in a textbook to talk about it. And that's really not enough.
Yeah. It really isn't. And, if we even do that.
Right. But I don't know, I don't know if there's an alternative that's available. Like, how would you really convey the horrors of the worst things that have happened in our history? There's just not a way to really wrap your brain around it, And then what we've experienced in real time is that if you get too graphic, people don't want to know it, and they don't want to be made to feel bad. So they opt to be ignorant of the history, and they say they want to protect their children from the horrors of the past. So we're just not going to talk about, whatever, slavery, the Holocaust, whatever, the thing is, because we don't want to scare the children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a conundrum.
It is a conundrum, and I know that this is a free podcast, so don't expect us to have an answer to that.
Oh God.
It's the paid podcast.
I can almost guarantee if we had an answer that you should ignore it too. So,
well, when we come up with an answer, that's going to be behind a paywall.
Oh God, this is the Answers podcast where we'll tell you exactly what to do and how to live. This is a new religion that I'm creating. How did you feel about Katniss having children as the ending of this book?
Well, I would have been satisfied without the epilogue. I didn't need the epilogue. It's a nice addition. I didn't really need it. Them having children was a little bit weird because she was so clear that she didn't want them. And the fact that she even tells us that she did it because Peeta basically was desperate to have them, which is to me a weird dynamic. I don't know how I think it's meant to be not as gross as I took it, but that, for my own baggage, that was just like, oh, wait, what? We're doing what now?
Yeah.
But then she has them, and of course she loves and adores them, because that's what happens when you have kids for most people, is that you do love and adore them, and you can't, allegedly, right? We are designed to love our children. I'm speaking like this because there are cases where people have them and that does not happen, right? Yeah. People get convinced that, once you have the kid, it'll all turn on for you. The light switch will go on, but it doesn't for everybody. So I think that that's very dangerous. That's just where I stand. I don't think we should be trying to convince people who don't want to have children, hoping that, but you'll fall in love with them the minute you have them. I think that's a very dangerous road to go down. And I don't like when people perpetuate that. So it's whatever. I guess somebody's got to have kids. So, it's fine, I guess. I didn't love it. But again,
it's a really kind of controversial ending.
Is it?
Yeah. There are a lot of people who really like it and feel like she only didn't want to have kids because of the trauma and feeling like she's going to put children in a world where they could go through that. But then she healed enough to have children. And so it was a sort of final expression of her, like, not that she didn't want children, period. It was more that whenever she thought of having children, the next thought was, and bring them in a world where they can be reaped. Why the fuck would I do that? So it was like a fear that was keeping her from them, not a desire to not have children.
Okay.
Which is that's kind of a different thing,
Yeah, that's fair. That is from the text that she is very clear that she doesn't want to have them because of the games. So,
but then the fact that she includes, it took me over a decade to agree, but Peeta wanted them so badly. A lot of people are just like, but you could have just not put it that way, where it feels like she caved after being, asked repeatedly for 15 years. And I think I understand the points of the first group. I took it more the second way because I also have the don't want to have children baggage thing. And it's just phrased in a way that I feel like I don't know if Suzanne Collins quite understood the way that was going to sound.
Right. Like, I feel like what she was going for was, I did it because I love Peeta so much and I'm willing to do, anything to make him happy. And, and this is an expression of our love together and blah, 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 blah. But it's just worded weirdly. And you're right. The fact that it took 15 years and the line about how she was never more terrified than when she was carrying the first child. Like, it was a terror that felt like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't sound great. None of that sounds great at all.
And I think I understand what she's trying to do, that like maybe the pregnancy wasn't great. Maybe she was terrified because she still hadn't quite gotten over this fear at the bottom of everything, that her kids were going to wind up in the same place. And it was just supposed to be that like watching them playing and seeing that they take for granted that they're safe is part of the healing process, seeing that the cycle has been broken, you know? But it's just really hard for me to like let it be that when it feels so much the other way initially for me. And so it's the kind of thing where I don't hate the ending. I like my instinct the first time I read it, I really didn't like it at all. And as time has gone on, and there's been a lot of discussion about this ending in the spoiler channel on Discord. And a lot of people like having wildly varied takes and personal experiences that they're bringing to it. So after reading through a lot of it, I don't necessarily agree, but I can understand why people have such varying interpretations. And I just wish that she had been more careful in the way that she had said it. Like you mentioned about how it almost feels like I didn't want them, but then I had them and now I love them. And it's a very slippery slope sort of assertion that, all you need to do is hold them. And then now you're going to feel like a mother. And that's just not the reality for some people. And then they feel like they're broken. Like there's something wrong with them because that didn't happen when
now you have a terrible
we
situation.
were just dishonest with you about it, you know, like, So I just think that there's some stuff in there that probably if she wrote this today, I think she might phrase things a little bit differently.
Yeah. I'm a little surprised that got past an editor that way. I'm curious if Suzanne Collins had like a conversation about like, no, I want it this way because of these things. This is why I want it phrased exactly this way. I do like that it's been 20 years and it seems like this new world that they've tried to build is plugging along. You know, we don't have any like outside detail about the way everything works, but we get like little bit of hints, the things about the factory, you know, making medicine, that the games have been outlawed, the arenas have been demolished. Like that part is very good to hear. And so I appreciate the epilogue for that, you know, giving me an idea of how long, you know, this new world is lasting. And it didn't just like immediately devolve back into the same bullshit. So that's cool. I appreciate the epilogue for that. But if it had ended just at the end of the last chapter, I would have been okay with that.
Yeah, agree. I kind of wish it had personally. Just because of the amount of controversy surrounding the epilogue, I would have not minded skipping all of that and just letting it be the last sentence being real, which feels very powerful to me. You know?
Yeah, I agree. It definitely could have ended there. But what a delight this whole journey was. I really enjoyed these books. I was just not. My expectations were so all over the place based on a little bit of the movie that I had seen and a lot of like the tropes I had known about just from pop culture. I wasn't expecting her to be swinging so hard at such like lofty goals of things that she was going to be attacking in the themes.
Yeah.
I had no idea that there was going to be so much to dig into, and it was fun is not the right word for the books, but it was a wonderful experience that I enjoyed them tremendously. I really did. Yay. It was a good time.
I'm really, really glad. And I'm so glad that I decided to go back and reread them instead of like continuing to write them off from memory like I was doing. Because I was such a different person on that first read, and I did not get it at all. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing how little I got it the first time, man.
I'm really curious if the movies are going to go as hard with the commentary as she goes in this book, in the book, or if they're going to back away from some of the bigger themes and focus on some of the little more like relationship stuff. And I don't just mean Peter, Gale, and Katniss, but I mean like the interpersonal relationships between all the characters, and shy away from the bigger themes. I'm very curious to see how that plays out in the movies, since I'm going to have to watch them.
She said grudgingly.
She did.
But yeah, I'm really interested in rewatching them because, again, it's been so long, and I feel like I started the third movie and never finished it or something. I don't remember what happened. So it'll be fresh for me in a weird way, even though it's the opposite of fresh. Really. So next week, that's what we'll do. It'll be the movie next week.
Oh, I gotta find them.
Dun, dun, dun.
Any idea whether?
I don't. Let me look it up real quick. Hunger Games streaming. It says Netflix.
Oh, awesome!
They're on Netflix. Cool. Boom! Love it. Sweet. I hope that's correct, because sometimes it'll say that, and then you'll click on it, and it'll be like Netflix Australia.
It sure fucking will.
It gets me so mad. They just love to, or it'll say Netflix today, and then tomorrow they're like, "What? Hunger Games? Never heard of it." That got deleted from everything. We don't think anybody actually produced a Hunger Games movies. Actually, the amount of stuff that's just getting like removed from the record is truly like alarming. But anyway, all right. So, of course, we've got to say hi to our newest patron. And this week, it is Megan Dunn.
Welcome.
Very much to Megan Dunn. I really hope that you are enjoying all of the patrons only content, that you have come to the Discord and gotten involved in the chats, the convos, the arguments about the epilogue of this book, all of that stuff. I just want everybody out there to know how much I appreciate the patrons. Y'all, you don't even know. So, like, every single day, I'm just like, God, I have people who support me. It's wild. And if you're interested in getting in on that, patreon.com/unspoiled, you can become a free follower and just get like the updates for news and, announcements. Or you can become a patron at the $5 and get access to a huge back catalog of stuff, access to the current recordings of Suki that I'm doing with Miles. I have the Suki book up for free now, the first book, so you can get a sense of what it's like to follow along with us. I've had some people mention that they like listen to that even though they didn't read the books, and that they're having like a blast, which is very funny to me. But I thought I would mention it. If anybody out there is like, I don't know, I never read those, listen anyway and just see what you think. You may be surprised. Sometimes hearing us tell the story secondhand is, if not accurate, an experience, a special experience all of its own. So do that. And there was one other thing that I was going to mention. I'm trying to remember what it is. I just wanted to touch briefly on the casting for Duncan Egg, which we'll definitely be covering. I'm interested. I'm just saying, former rugby player. Hi, what's up? So if you're into Song of Ice and Fire, but you're like more into the HBO shows, RoShawn and I are going to be picking back up House of the Dragon when it comes out. And then Duncan Egg. I had wanted to read it with RoShawn initially, and a part of me kind of wants to not now that they're going to do the show, because I enjoy the experience of being the person who knows the text, and RoShawn being the one who's going in with like the TV experience only. So we'll see, but this is not Hunger Games related. Just wanted to put it out there. And I think that's about everything. I posted up the Avatar, Loki, and Legend of Korra playlists for purchase, which are also included with the $20 tier now. And also, I posted the live read from last episode as a video to the Patreon. So if you're a patron, you can go and actually watch RoShawn's face as I read her the moment when Coin is shot. And it's really worth it. Her reaction was better than I could have hoped. Like, you could tell she was shocked on the audio, but I really feel like watching her face when she claps her hands over her mouth it's just its own special thing. So go check that out. Also on the TikToks, and I'm going to try and put this on the Patreon as well. I did a like sort of edited down of the live listen of the new Cowboy Carter album from Beyonce with Miles that I did live on Crowdcast. So it's just like a 6-minute long, like sort of best moments where him and I are just reacting to songs and stuff. But yeah, Unspoiled Podcast.
Where did you put that?
That's on TikTok.
Okay, I'm gonna go look for that because I watched the live join with you guys, but I haven't seen the TikTok yet, so I'm gonna go look for that. Girl,
you know that video that I stitched a reply about like Shine and plus clothing and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many views I'm at with that?
Where are you up to now?
92,000.
Shut the fuck up. Well, you got to do something quick.
10,000 comments or 10,000 likes, 600 comments.
All right. You gotta flip that somehow. I don't know.
There's no way to do that. That's the thing about social media is that you go viral and like, that's kind of probably going to be, you can try and leverage it, but this video is on a topic that I don't do on the podcast. Talking about like plus, like, so there's not really a way for me. This is sort of irrelevant to what I'm doing in some ways.
I don't know. New podcast real quick.
Where I just bitch and moan about plus size clothing. Honestly, I should.
Numbers don't lie.
But anyway, I was just really startled because most of my videos on TikTok have like 200 views, very, very low numbers. And then this one, all of a sudden, it just took off and I was not prepared to log in and have like 100. The notifications pop up at the bottom only goes up to 99. So it'll just say 99 plus every time I sign in because that's all the like interactions I've had. It's been kind of overwhelming, actually. I don't know how people do this who are like really famous, but I guess you just get people to cope with it so that you don't have to.
I think that's how that works.
That's a dream. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you all so much for listening, for supporting us, talking about us to people. I really hope that y'all have enjoyed our coverage of the books and looking forward to seeing you interact with us about them and hopefully, share some fun spoilery TikToks as well with RoShawn now that she gets to see them. Make sure they don't have Ballad of Songbirds and Snake spoilers, though.
I can take that test now. Which character are you now?
You can indeed.
All right. Is there like one that you take? Is it one that everybody takes, or did I just?
I'll find the link in the Discord, or somebody else could share it again. I'm sure there's more than one. But do you remember who I got?
Effie, right?
I got Effie as my number 1 and President Snow as my number 2.
Oh, I forgot about Snow.
Yeah. Revisiting that after the books, I feel very attacked, but
Wait, you took it the first time long time ago or you took it recently?
No, I mean like talking to you about it after we have finished the books together. Because, I told you that I got Snow back when, and I feel like that's just kind of more appalling now. Life comes up too fast.
All right. Well, yes, I just found one. I don't know if it's the same one everybody else did, but send it to me when you find it or somebody post it.
Okay.
On Facebook so I see it because I'm gonna take this one. It's from something called Haywise. I don't know. But when
Haywise,
yeah, right. Maybe I shouldn't be on this site. They're probably taking all my fucking information just because I clicked on it.
What is your mother's maiden name? Is your first question on your Hunger Games quiz? That's weird.
Oh, then there's an IDR Labs one, Hunger Games character test. I think I'll take that one. Anyway, this is not interesting to listen to. Bye, y'all.
Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Are you coming to the tree? They strung up a man. They say he murdered 3. Strange things that happen here. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree? Are you coming to the tree where dead men call out for his love to flee? Strange things that happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.